for self-destruction. Part 3. Disconnection, isolation, and shattered harmony.
Between about 1907 and 1940, America was haunted by a mysterious new disease, ensnaring over 3 million souls and killing over 100,000 of them. This ghost that turned people into ghosts had a name: pellagra. By the late 1930s, scientists learned that all the pellagra outbreaks were due to what? A vitamin deficiency. People not getting enough of this newly discovered niacin, also known as B3. After that, in 1941, the U.S. government started adding niacin to white flour, fortifying breads with B3 along with B1, aka thiamine, as well as with some iron. Vitamin B2, riboflavin, was soon added to the mix, and a bunch more of their vitamin and mineral friends in their isolated forms soon came tagging along, getting tossed into things like rice, cornmeal, pasta, grits, donuts, suddenly, overnight, turning unhealthy foods into healthy ones. And the pellagra, yes, it went away, as did many other diseases. We found a cure, woohoo! You could even get vitamins as supplements in the form of a pill. Americans had already been popping vitamin A, vitamin C, and multivitamins since the 1920s, but they really started popping them in the 1950s and 60s, tossing multivitamins especially in their mouth, a pill packed with lots of mysterious, supposedly good things, blindly trusting that these new pills, these new technologies, would only do the good things that they claimed to do, that was advertised that they would do. But we know that's never the case. That's never true. There's always much more to the story, whether intentionally or not. We are living in a larger system, a larger world, and when you tweak one piece of this network, that can cascade off into a lot of different unforeseeable directions. In this case, it likely led to people eating more food, and especially more junk food. It turned off their body's signal to keep seeking these vitamins out in their real form, and therefore we were able to sort of trick our bodies into thinking we were getting nutrition, that we were getting the entire package, but in reality, we're only turning off some of the signals through satisfying these vitamin and mineral needs. While that's all fine and great, that's not all we need. We also need the other nutrients that these vitamins are naturally packaged with. And also, we need everything in just the right ratio. Our body thinks in ratios, not in isolated numbers of this nutrient or that nutrient. Yes, you need a certain amount of X and a certain amount of Y, but it's really about balancing everything out. So when we add in too many B vitamins, that's only part of this fractional equation or whatever, the denominator, the numerator, or whatever. The answer to this equation still needs to come out to a clean number, whatever that body wants that number to be. So we have to change the other numbers in the mathematical equation. With B vitamins, the other number, the other variable, or one of the main variables is energy, i.e. calories. So when you have an excess of B vitamins, your body starts seeking out an excess of calories. And luckily, as we learned in the last episode, calories were everywhere starting now. We had fast food, we had processed food, there was plenty of food, especially in the USA. Lots of B vitamins, lots of calories, bad combination, unless that is you want to get fat. It seems we had overcorrected. We got scared off from that pellagra outbreak. We didn't want to, we saw what not enough of these B vitamins could do, but as a result, we went the complete other direction and we overcompensated and flooded our system in these B vitamins, which over the coming decades would be one of the reasons why we started flooding our body with calories, i.e. energy, so that these B vitamins could do what they're built to do. Help our body use the nutrients, the energy that we took in the form of carbohydrates and fats and proteins, and especially carbohydrates. So if you have too many employees, you've got 300 workers in the supermarket, what are you going to do? Let's expand the supermarket. Let's add in more food. Let's bring in more customers. We don't want to waste all these employees, but when the government started pumping all these B vitamins into us, that's essentially what it was doing. It was giving us all this extra workforce, just increasing the workforce, but there wasn't any extra work. So we had to sort of create the work. We had to create the energy. The body didn't want these helpers just sitting around. So we created work for them by ingesting more food, more than we needed. So we stored it as fat. And too much of anything is going to cause damage, especially when that excess thing is sugar, which is what these extra B vitamins seek out, signaling to our brain, our feelings to want that sugar and to seek that sugar. And at the same time, advertisements and all these other things were telling us to get it. So we were beginning to enter down a dangerous path, a path coated in candy, in sugar, and leading to a witch's house who would fatten us up and eat us alive. This is not to say that we should cut out all the B vitamins. That would also kill us. Remember, the pellagra was caused by a vitamin B3 niacin deficiency. Likewise, if you're not getting enough B6, B9, folate, or B12, that can cause problems with your nerves. It might cause some neuropathy. These are needed for proper nerve signaling and the production of certain neurotransmitters. And without them, the whole electrical system in your body is going to get all out of whack and it's not going to feel good. So it's all about getting just what you need, but not too much. Which is why getting all of these nutrients from food itself is a great strategy, because nature has already evolved, figured out the right ratios for us, packaging these nutrients in the ways that they need to be, and usually not going too overboard. Vitamins, supplements, especially how unregulated they are, that's a whole other story. And while they on their own didn't create all these problems, they certainly, or most likely, were a piece of the puzzle. Nowadays, multivitamins contain dozens and dozens of supposed nutrients, 90% of which we consumers usually don't even know what they are, and even the producer doesn't know what half of them are. The scientists are only understanding a fraction of it all, but they sell, so we keep getting them. And they're not regulated too strictly, so that's a heyday for the business. Government's getting their piece of the pie too, so we all winners, right? No, except for us. But like I said, we need a certain amount, so they might help in people with severe deficiencies, but dude, I'm looking at this multivitamin I have now, not buying it again. Dude, it's got like 9,000% of the daily recommended value of this and that. 3,000% of this, 8,000% of this. Dude, come on, man, what are you doing? Nah. I should have read it more carefully. Learned that lesson. Still, back to the 1940s. At that time, we were not yet getting obese. 1950s, not really getting fat. In the 1950s, despite a sudden surplus and overload of food, us tossing calories down our throat like there was no tomorrow, we weren't really getting obese. In 1950, about 10% of American adults were obese. By 1960, that number jumped up to 13%, a relatively big jump. I guess all those weird things we were putting in and on our bodies were having some effect, but nothing like we would see in the decades to come. The show is about to start, guys. Grab some popcorn, escape while you still can, or enjoy the ride. But might need to reserve an extra double-wide seat and keep the barf bag and snack menu nearby. You should still be getting enough oxygen, but if not, just strap that oxygen mask on for the entire flight. If they ask you why, just say, hey, I can't breathe, I got health problems. We can't blame ourselves too much for all of this, though. We didn't know. Even the people making all this stuff probably didn't know how much damage they were causing, how much they were gumming up and effing up the system. Let's talk about some more of these damaging substances. The 1950s and 60s also saw a huge increase in use of plastics. Plastics in toys, containers, shoes, bottles, and everything you could think of, really. We didn't know that these benign-looking items were, especially when heated up, leaking out their toxic chemicals into our bloodstream, disrupting our hormones, neurons, heart, and everything. And the use of plastics would only increase, peaking hopefully soon. It made things cheaper to produce and buy and more convenient, but at what price? And this isn't even to mention the environmental impact, which might be okay if the larger environment full of oceans and rivers and soil and animals and beautiful things were actually separate from us. And the illusion that we are separate from everything else made it really easy for us to just toss this stubborn, non-degradable stuff into our larger human body, the earth. We need to start thinking of the body as being an extension of the brain, and the earth, along with everything in it, as being an extension of the body. It's all one thing, because it is all one thing. One giant, complex organism, one system, one location in space. One node affects every other location, every other node. One moment of time ripples into, crashing into every other moment. Time as being made up of separate minutes, hours, decades, and centuries is also an illusion. No moment in time is an island. We are all one big family, tied up to one another through space and time. The more we can see that and act accordingly, the less we'll start hurting ourselves and our current problems. I'm specifically focusing on the health problems today, but you can apply this to really any kind of problem. The causes of all those problems will also become obvious if you open up the lens about who and what you are, how it is all actually just one big unified system. You'll see the cause and solution in plain sight. In 1970, the obesity rate of American adults was now 15%. So clearly something was changing, something was starting to build up, but there was no means an epidemic just yet. 15% is far below the global average today as of 2023, and that's even if you include Asia, where people are still the skinniest. Currently, as of this year, about 5% of Japanese, as well as South Koreans and Indians, are obese. People in the Philippines, Myanmar, and China are just a teeny bit fatter, about 7% obese. Vietnam, one of my absolutely favorite countries and somewhere I think I might move to someday, only less than 3%. Woo! But then you look at Thailand and Malaysia right nearby, and something funky is happening, 12 and 18% respectively. Looking into what's going on in these Asian outliers might be a fun little homework assignment, a little project you can give yourself. That might be able to tell us part of why we in the West got so fat and why they might soon be looking and feeling as horrible as us. Their neighbors, the Singaporeans, are a bit less obese, but getting there. And the Indonesians, just a stone's throw away across the water, are trailing just a bit behind at about 10%. Almost every European and South American country is at least double this. Triple if you look at the UK and its old colonies, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa. These obedient, obese servants marching in line with them to the beat of 30%. And the US, at over 40%, makes those Brits look like sexy, skinny little studs. Well, maybe not skinny, but voluptuous? Not extra big and beautiful, but just a standard big and beautiful. I'm big, I'm sexy, and I'm proud. I don't want to change a thing about my God-given body. Ooh, hey, baby. So the U.S. went from 15% in 1970 to over 40% in 2023. Something happened within these years very clearly. Either it was a buildup or escalation of everything we've been talking about in these past few episodes, or some new toxin or toxins, new bad boys, were about to be added into the mix. I will argue that it was a bit of both, but ultimately it was the blindly getting carried away with that original faulty assumption. The assumption that there is no system, only parts, that living things are the same as machines and we can treat them and fix them like machines, like isolated parts. And by adding in a little bit of this or a little bit of that, it's all just simple programming. We got this, we know what we're doing. No, we don't. Okay, so there's a lot to dig through here. There are a lot of things that happened in the 70s. Let's look at some of those. For one, we had a running boom taking off. Companies like Nike popularized running and jogging, and more people started wearing athletic shoes. New Balance had already been around since 1906, and Reebok basically since 1895, Adidas since 1924. But aside from the Japanese Onitsuka Tiger, now Asics, which basically gave Nike, then Blue Ribbon, its start, the other companies didn't really start making running shoes until much later. In the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, they were making shoes, but they were ones that looked more like cleats, those shoes with spikes at the bottom. Running shoes really didn't start taking off until the 1970s. Anyway, why are we talking about shoes? This is an unlikely culprit, I must admit, but I'm just snooping around here, seeing if there's anything. So let's go down this path for a few more minutes. For most of human history, we didn't wear shoes, or at least if we did, they were really thin and made of some plant material or leather. Even Alexander the Great's army would go into battle barefoot. Shoes were for losers. Yeah, losers. Until the Romans changed all that. For the past about 2,000 years, we've been wearing shoes pretty regularly, unless you were a peasant or a slave. In the medieval times, they got long. Shoes got long, sometimes up to 2 feet long. What? In the 1600s, they got tall, but you were only allowed to wear these gorgeous high heel shoes if you were royalty. Pretty, pretty king, pretty, pretty king. Oh, Louis, 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 won't you look at me? Let me lick your red high heels, run my fingers through your hair, curly, curly black hair. No, 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 shoo, these are my shoes, none for you. You can lick my feet and brush my floor, clean my house, unbutton my drawers. The Industrial Revolution of the 1800s put shoemakers out of business, closed down shop. Factories started cranking them out like slices of cheese. Okay, why do you want to work in this shoe factory? Because I love shoes and I need the money. Okay, you're hired. Start today. Here's 3 cents. However, nevertheless, shoes were still largely being made of kind of real stuff like leather. A bit friendlier to the body and earth. Sorry, cows, except for you. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. Did I hurt you? I just saw these shoes and I was like, oh my god, they're so beautiful. I have to have them, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. From the bottom of my heart. If it makes you feel better, your baby's dead body is so delicious. I put it on my burger with organic ketchup. So good. I'm definitely going back there. Sorry, cow. Take one for the team. From around the 1950s and 60s, we started making shoes out of rubber and plastic and running in these things. I promise I'll stop rambling about shoes soon, but just give me a few more seconds. So what might be wrong with running? What might be wrong with these shoes? I'm not going to talk about running. I'll let you think about that one yourself if you want to. Running does get our bodies moving, exercising, but it also puts us in a stressed fight-flight state and busts up our joints, among other things. Anyway, what I want to look at is these rubber soles. No coincidence that the Beatles album, Rubber Soul, came out around the same time, 1965. But that's no problem. That's definitely a net positive. Love the Beatles. The problem was our sudden disconnect from the earth. For almost all of human history, our feet, our bodies were touching the earth, and now they were not. For the most part, either we were completely barefoot or wearing leather or some plant on our feet. Not a very strong barrier. The electrons from the ground could freely flow up through our feet and through our bodies, neutralizing the free radicals and balancing everything out. When you put rubber between your feet and the earth, that line of communication, the traveling of electricity between the body and the earth, gets blocked. Rubber is an insulator. It stops the flow of electricity. It therefore isolates us from the earth, a huge part of our larger being, and we suffer electrically, physically, mentally. I know it sounds a bit woo-woo, and this science is called earthing. If you want to learn more about it, you probably already have. Anyway, I love it. I like to get my feet on that park ground. I wish I had a beach or a forest or something, but I'm stuck in the city till I leave it. Plus, remember, the nerves on the bottom of our feet or anywhere near the surface of our skin were designed to detect things like texture, temperature, and things like that. True, you probably don't want to be feeling the texture of that broken beer bottle or the hot summer asphalt on your feet. But remember, your feet and your nerves down there evolved and adapted to pick up that information from the environment down below and respond to it. Clearly, we weren't thinking about all this when we created glass bottles, asphalt, and everything else. But once again, we weren't thinking of the future dominoes that would fall. We thought we were separate from our environment, but in reality, we are intimate lovers, making sweet, sweet love 24/7, constantly transmitting messages back and forth. Love you, Earth. Who cares if you can't see it? Love is invisible, right? Visual appearance is no reliable way to judge reality. Every animal sees differently. Butterflies and goldfish would be laughing at our blind, cocky eyes. Anyway, our body misses its mother, its larger self, the earth. Our feet are feeling it, or more like not feeling it, becoming numb to reality, like dead, bored, trapped in stinky, sweaty, tiny, solitary confinement cells of plastic and rubber. Even zoo animals got it better than our poor, lonely, decaying feet. Yes, they're way down there, but it doesn't mean we have to torture and abuse them. But that's not the only thing we're abusing. Due to the fears of skin cancer and advancements in sunscreen technology, now offering SPF protection against those devilish UVA and UVB rays. You want devil on your skin? I don't think so. Put this on, rub it on, slather up, and protect yourself. Sunscreen use spiked in the 70s and 80s and continues to today. We thereby hit our bodies with a double punch. We became disconnected from the sun, less able to receive its information, telling us when to eat, sleep, and do everything else that we need for survival. Plus, sunglasses became cool again, an iconic symbol of counterculture and fashion. Light is perhaps the biggest, most important piece of information about our environment. We evolved together with it for hundreds of millions of years and billions of years if you count our bacteria and mitochondria. And now cut that information source completely off or largely off, keeping our body, all of its cells and organs in the dark. We become lost in space and time, not knowing where or when we are. Hormones and everything surely got out of whack. Plus, we were using even more artificial lights, keeping us up at night, confusing and throwing off our body even more. Can't catch a break, day or night, trapped in this virtual world of light, nearly 24/7, covering our skin with a VR headset that smells like coconut, and our eyes with one that made day look like night. Plus, our skin absorbs whatever it touches. Those BPA-filled receipts? Yep. Those memos, those tattoos you wrote on your hand in 3rd grade, getting into your blood and ultimately to your body cells? Yep. Don't start freaking out, but yes, your skin is not this invincible barrier you thought it was. Of course, large molecules and things, for example, marbles and raisins and jelly beans, and aren't just gonna slip through and disappear into your skin. Ain't gonna fit. But sunscreen and makeup? Oh, most definitely. Women were still wearing makeup and stuff like that. And that kind of stuff, like everything else, had more weird chemicals in it. Sunscreen too, especially since it was getting stronger in order to block those evil UV rays. Rays of the devil, I tell you! Oh, praise the Lord! Block away those ultraviolet? Violet. Ha! I say violent. Get them out of here. Let's kill them. Let's wipe them out with these chemicals. Oh yeah, lather up. Oxybenzone was one chemical to help with that, and it was put in a lot of sunscreens starting from the late 70s. That jacked up our hormones and also likely contributed to the bleaching of the coral reefs. Whoops. Uh-oh. Octizonate came squirting out of those bottles from the 80s onwards, similar to oxybenzone and messing up our bodies and the environment in similar ways. And then came retinol palmitate that does God knows what, supposedly increasing risk of skin cancer. That ingredient became more prevalent in the sunscreens of the 90s. And I'm not even going to get started with these canned spray-on sunscreens that you see parents spraying on their kids at the beach. Oh, so convenient, especially if you like inhaling the previously mentioned chemicals and releasing it directly into the air. And if you think you're not connected, intimately united with the air out there, the stuff you breathe 24/7, and without which you would die within a few minutes, if you can't see that one tiny ripple from the butterfly's wings, that obvious connection between us and it, I don't know what to say. Luckily, people are realizing these harmful effects from sunscreens, and the sunscreen manufacturers are trying to make them healthier. So you're just gonna have to research and examine each specific sunscreen brand before you buy it. Still, sunscreen, rubber, that can't be all. Nope. I'm saving the best for last. And we're not there yet, but it's coming soon. What else could it be? What could it be? Personal computers arrived in the late 70s, 80s, but I don't think that was a big problem. That was more like a deadly, but also beautiful and life-enhancing seed being planted that would grow and explode into the smartphone a few decades later. The phone was also still just a phone at this time. Not much had changed in that department since its invention in 1876. Thank you, Alexander.
You're very welcome, future radio man. But where are you exactly?
Oh, just at home on my computer.
Oh yeah, is it comfy?
What?
Your comforter. How does it feel? Is it one of those new soft ones they sell down to nickel and dime?
Yeah, it's super soft. What the hell is that? Just some ghost? Is that a ghost or something? Alexander's old ghost just popping in and interrupting my podcast? Just say his name and like I summoned him or something. I don't know. I guess that's a risk in the business. It's part of the deal, you know. When you make a podcast, things like that happen. So I guess we just got to continue. And I don't know. Hope it doesn't happen again. That was pretty freaky. Guy just came in and talked to me. Anyway, so yeah, these phones hadn't really changed much since crusty old Alexander's time. Sorry, I think he's gone, so can't talk about him. Anyway, but except maybe he became a bit more convenient and just slightly faster. That can't be it. Okay, let's get to the big Bowsers, the true devils, the culprits that I believe pushed us down that hill of health, us gathering fat and disease, broken bodies and brains along the way, and it all goes back to be continued again. No! See you next time. I got more coming. Later, guys.